Hello friends, it's Kris V here with your tip of the week. So I want to talk today about a question that I often get asked and definitely have asked myself, and that is, how do you achieve success? So in my about 15 years of being an entrepreneur, I definitely have failed a lot and have learned a lot and have struggled with getting to that point where I would consider success. Especially in this last year, we finally achieved some pretty big goals, and it took a while to get there though. And so when I get asked this question though, really the first thing that I actually ask that person then is, well, it kind of depends on what your definition of success is. See, your definition of success may be different than mine. Is your definition mean that you have $1 million in the bank? Does it mean maybe that you get to spend more time with family? Does it mean that you get to quit your day job and travel around the world? Who knows? So your definition of success is going to be the first thing that you got to figure out in order to answer that question of how do you achieve success. Then after that, you have to kind of then venture down this path of what's preventing you from achieving that success. You see, we all tend to run into hurdles and roadblocks along the way. And so I want to talk about that because a lot of us, though, we tend to think that those roadblocks are maybe because I don't have the money to achieve these things, or to buy this investment, or to buy this certain program, or to get the coaching I need, whatever it is. We think, well, I don't have the money to start that in the first place, so I'm never going to be able to achieve that success. Or maybe it's we think, well, I was born into a poor family, and the way I was brought up, I just can't achieve success because of my family, really. They're holding me back. The other reasons might be, well, I work a 9 to 5 job and I've got a boss, and so I don't have the time to be working on this other venture and be successful. Another reason might be just your circumstances in general, maybe the area you live in. A lot of people tend to blame their circumstances or make excuses for those. But the reality is, that's actually not a roadblock. Those are hurdles. Don't get me wrong, those are definitely hurdles that we come across, but those are not roadblocks that are preventing you from being successful. You see, really, the only roadblock is you. We tend to be our biggest enemy. We tend to create roadblocks in our mind that prevent us from achieving that success and getting to that path and finishing the goals that we set. I talked to one of my mentors just recently, and one of the things we were discussing was year-end goals. We're at the end of the year now, and so we're talking about achievements for the year and then goals for next year. And as we were going through this, we have some really big, exciting things coming out this next year. And so I was talking to him about the financial aspects and the risk really that is involved. And I was telling him, this is probably the biggest, riskiest move I've ever made in my career here. And so he asked me, well, hey Kris, how does that make you feel? And that was a great question, because when I thought about it, I told him, well, really, I feel scared. I'm a little afraid. And he probed a little bit more and asked me why. And I told him, well, I hear these voices in the back of my head, and they're voices that I struggle with for a long, long time. And they're voices that were telling me, oh, you can't do this, or telling me, just stay where you're at. Don't take that risk. You're comfortable right now. Just stay in that position. And I realized that those voices have been with me most of my life, and I've spent a big portion of my life as an entrepreneur fighting against those voices so that I can continue to succeed. And so I also realized that, if I listen to those voices, that will lead to complacency, which complacency leads to failure. And I wasn't going to fail, and I'm not going to fail. So he then asked me, though, well, let's look at the opposite. What if everything goes right? What if you take this big risk it works out, you start making more money, your business starts succeeding more, you start achieving your goals there that you're setting. What if it all goes right? What does that look like to you, Kris, and how does that feel? And I said, wow, that feels exuberant is actually the word I used. And I did check with my wife. She's a former teacher, and she said, yes, that is a real word there. That's a big word for me, though. So I said, I feel exuberant, looking at that and seeing that, that's helping me achieve my why. That's getting me that much closer to my big why there. And as I was thinking through that, I realized that that's what it takes, right? It takes that risk and being willing to take that jump. I heard a webinar not too long ago too, and this guy was talking about CEOs and how a lot of big CEOs that are making $1 million paychecks there, some of them, especially lately, have been getting fired or they lose their job. It doesn't take them very long to get another job where they're making $1 million again. And he pointed out that the reason that is not because the company values them at $1 million. It's because they value themselves as $1 million. And so they won't accept anything less. They shoot for what they know they are valued at. So you have to ask yourself, what are you valued at? And I had to ask myself that too. And I had to realize that these roadblocks that I was causing for myself had to be taken down. They had to be torn apart there. You can't feed that voice too. So when you hear that voice in the back of your head, whatever it's telling you, then you can't feed it. And feeding it is when you repeat it, when you say it out loud. When you do that, you're feeding that voice and you're making it stronger. You actually have to do the opposite. You got to tell yourself what you are going to accomplish, what you will do, and you have to make that be louder than the voices that are in the back of your head. So that way, it's the only thing you hear. It's the only thing you see. You got to have a big purpose there, so big that it overcomes any negative thoughts that enter your mind. And those negative thoughts get pushed out because the reality is that bigger picture that you see, that you know is real and is what's going to happen. I heard a marriage counselor once tell me that in order to fix a damaged relationship in a marriage there that's fallen apart, the best way to repair a marriage, he said, is to blow it up first. And at first I was like, oh, what do you mean by that? But what he meant there was that you actually have to get to the root of the problem. You got to blow it up. You got to expose everything there first. And that way you can start the repair process. So you guys may be in that same situation. If you're struggling and you are hitting that roadblock and you finally get to the point where you realize it's your roadblock, then you're going to have to blow that roadblock away. Get a piece of dynamite and blow that thing up. Because if that's your path to success and you see where you want to be, you see that goal at the end, but you see that huge roadblock in the way, you got to blow it up. You got to get it out of the way so that you can continue on that path towards success. That's the healthy state that you want to be in. So how do you achieve success? So number one, you got to first define what is success for you. Number two, you need to then determine and find out what are the hindrances, what are the, not the roadblocks, but what are the hurdles that are in your way. Those hurdles need to be overcome, but that's nothing like your roadblock. And then you got to find out, once you realize what your roadblock is, that you are preventing yourself from success, then you got to blow that up so that you can move forward there and continue on your path to success. So I hope this is helpful for you. We're going to be talking more about the purpose and the why. I want to share some really cool things and some tips that I think will be pretty helpful for you. So please be sure to subscribe, like this down below. Feel free to share it with any of your friends that you think might benefit from it as well, and comment as well. So I look forward to reading your comments and look forward to more videos with you soon. Thanks. Have a great day.